Our new unit and our last unit of the year is going to be ecology. And so, like always, we will start it with our essential question and our learning targets. The essential question is, how can change in one part of an ecosystem affect change in the other parts of the ecosystem? Our learning targets, which are our I can statements, are I can explain the difference between biotic and abiotic factors, and I can explain the transfer of energy in a food chain / food web. Okay, now I would like to talk about and just show you some of the slides that go along with this ecology unit. And I think I might have to turn off the light, so hang on a minute, just because I think it might be better with the way this PowerPoint is. Okay, so the key concepts include interactions within and among populations, nutrient cycling with energy flow through ecosystems, and the effects of natural events and human activities on ecosystems. What is ecology? Ecology is the study of interactions between organisms and their environment, focusing on energy transfer. It is a science of relationships. Basically, it's the relationships not only between living organisms, but also between non-living things. What do you mean by environment? The environment is made up of two factors. There are biotic factors that live in the environment and abiotic factors that live in the environment. Biotic factors are all living things that are going to inhabit the earth, and abiotic is anything that is non-living. So they're all the non-living parts of the environment, like temperature, soil, light, moisture, air currents, any of that is considered water. I mean, all of that is considered to be non-living because they are not made of cells. But yet we know, like, for example, in our own life that we could not live without water. So this is really what ecology is. It's the study of living things and non-living things and how they interact. When we look at some levels of organization, just like when we talked about cells, and we said that the levels of organization for us was that we started as a cell, the basic unit of life, and then we went to tissues, to organs, to organ systems, and then into the organism. Here we start with an organism, or sometimes some textbooks say an individual. Then they're going to become a population when they mate with one another and produce fertile offspring. Then if you get a bunch of populations, we call it a community. When you throw in a bunch of populations that make up the community with all of the non-living parts of the community, like the water and the soil and the atmosphere and all of that, then we say it's an ecosystem. And then we finally get to our last level, which is the biosphere. And that is the part on Earth where life exists, all life. So if we start with the individual or the organism, it's any cellular level or any unicellular or multicellular form that is exhibiting all of the characteristics of life. So basically we would say it's an individual, the lowest level of organization. Populations are groups of organisms of one species living in the same place at the same time. They can interbreed and compete with one another for resources. So they might compete with one another for food, for shelter, for mates. So basically, if you have a deer, when that deer reproduces with another deer, you will make more deer, and now you'll have a species of a certain type of deer, and they will live in the same area at the same time, and they are able to interbreed and produce fertile offspring. The next level up is the community. This is several interacting populations that inhabit a common environment and are interdependent. So when I like to think of a community is, to me, it's like the deer and the mice and the humans and the birds and the bacteria and everything that is living. And if it's in a certain area, so like if we say the town of Westmoreland, we just don't have deer. You know, we have rabbits, we have grass, we have humans, we have insects. So anything that's living is going to be considered a community. The next level up is an ecosystem, and this is where we start throwing in the abiotic factors, which we also refer to as non-living. So remember, biotic, think of bio, bio, think of biology, and that means that is life, living, because biology is the study of life. So abiotic is going to be the opposite of that. It's the non-living organisms that you know that we can't live without. So again, if you are an ecosystem, then you have populations in a community, and then you include the abiotic factors with which they interact. So even though water's non-living to us, we interact with water daily, whether it's in our food, it's in our drinks, we shower with it, bathe with, whatever it is, we wash our car, whatever, we're using water. And then within this ecosystem, there are biomes that we're not going to really get into this year, and we don't even do them in living environment. But you could think of a biome as like areas where there's like a certain climate, so like tundra, there's deciduous and other areas where they have climate sort of attached to it. In this particular example, they gave us marine and terrestrial. Marine means in the ocean or in water, and terrestrial means on land. And then the last slide I want to do for today is biosphere, and this is the last level. This is life supporting proportions of Earth composed of air, land, fresh water, and salt water. It's the highest level of organization. And so if you wanted to even compare it to what we did in the beginning of the year with cells, it would be the organism. So biosphere is the same as like when we get to the end of the cells, tissues, organs, and all of that, and we say that it is the organism that ends, and in this case of an ecological level of organization, biosphere ends it. Now, just like we have a mnemonic, can Tom open over stuffed Oreos to help us remember cells, tissues, organs, and so on? My students a long time ago came up with a mnemonic for these levels of organization, and they started because at that time some of the notes were starting out with individual. So we went individual, and then we did, so if I go back, it would be individual, then population, community, ecosystem, biosphere. And one of my students came up with something that just again stuck with me. It's a goofy saying, but at least it may help you remember. And it's Isabella picks corn every birthday is what they came up with. You could even change it and say Isabella picks cake every birthday. You can, if you don't like Isabella, you can do the O and say Olivia picks cake every birthday or whatever, because individual and organism mean the same thing.